Hello and welcome to Precontation Points Video Snark. I read bad books so that you don't have to. I'm continuing my read-through of Breach by KI Lynn. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Please be warned that this review contains adult material. I try my best to use metaphors and be vague, but sometimes you have to talk about a rooster. Chapter 21. The chapter opens with Caroline finally calling Kelly out on her nonsense in regards towards Nathan, which is a sweet moment to be sure, but the entire thing feels so awkwardly hollow, especially because the second Drew shows up, the narration forgets all about Kelly. Drew mentions some random lady named Joan, who is apparently the only reason why Delilah even knows what a normal family is supposed to look like. And look, I'm all for Delilah having stability in her life, but we're on chapter 21 of 25. I literally don't care about how the book has decided to shove in another character. Caroline can tell that Drew isn't wanted in the office, so she drags him away with some paper-thin excuse. Once they're gone, Delilah tells Nathan that when she was 17, she sought to emancipate herself from her father. John was her lawyer who helped her through all of it. However, before it could go to court, CPS finally stepped in, which seems like you should have done that years ago, but whatever. Delilah ended up moving to literally another state and ended up with the foster family. Delilah also talks about her foster brother. She then randomly says that her favorite Disney movie is Cinderella, for obvious reasons, and goes on to tell Nathan that when she was 14, her father kicked her so hard she broke 2 ribs, but the hospital believed his phony story over an idea that this literal child was being abused. She talks some about her abuse, how it was mostly verbal, but about twice a year her dad would end up putting her in the hospital. And literally nobody noticed this? She goes on and says that she was the result of a one-night stand, as I had previously suspected. But when Delilah was 5, her mom died in a car crash. Her own parents were gone, and the only living relative was apparently the abusive father who wanted nothing to do with his indiscretion that resulted in a literal child. Literally the only reason why he even took her was because he apparently was somebody important in his local community and that would have shamed him more. Oh, he put on a face in public, but never once had a kind word for her behind closed doors. After that, they go back to their work. But Delilah is plagued with all these painful memories telling Nathan brought to the surface. They go home after work is over for the day and Nathan treats her real gentle and soft. And Delilah has the thought that she's in love with him, which thought that she'd come to this conclusion chapters ago. You know, the one where she tied Nathan up and forced him to confront his emotions for her? Editors! Ha! Who are they? Chapter 22. The chapter opens with Delilah explaining to the reader that Nathan wakes up in pain more often than not, and he takes pills in order to manage his pain. No, not just takes a pill. The guy downs pills like Tic Tacs and he's a boy about to have his first kiss. Like, I'm in my 30s. I know what long-term pain is. I'm also a woman and I have bad periods more often than not. But there is something just off about Nathan's character that makes me wonder if he isn't addicted to these pain meds. But, oh my god, you guys! They bond over how Nathan had 5 broken ribs, and it matches up with Delilah's own broken ribs. It's so sweet! Like, I'm glad that people can find others who know the kind of physical and emotional pain that they went through, but like, at this point the relationship is already a dumpster fire. There's no amount of, hey, check out my scars that the author could do that could make me change my mind this late into the book. An undefined time later, Delilah, Nathan, and Drew, a random other lawyer, and 2 clients are having a business lunch. Nathan starts to do stuff to Delilah under the table as they're eating. Delilah excuses herself to the bathroom, but Nathan follows her in after a moment. And this is worse than at the bar, because at the bar, at least it was in a casual social situation and only with Drew. There are literally clients waiting for them outside. What the hell? They bang, as you might have already guessed. My job was important to me, but Nathan meant more. Which is probably good, because I have a feeling that this book is going to end with both of them getting fired. At least they'll have one another to cry on after that happens. They clean themselves up and go back to the table. Together, Ben, the other lawyer, makes a weird joke about it. However, as they sit down, Delilah can't help but note that there's a weird look in Drew's gaze. This probably isn't going to end well, as I keep predicting, and now I'm wondering if Drew is going to be the one who will blow the whistle on them, simply out of jealousy over Delilah. After the workday is finished, Delilah and Nathan go home at the same time like they always do. They start making out in the elevator and barely get out into the hallway while they're still making out. Only to be caught literally red-handed by Drew, which, wow, so now he's stalking her or something? What the hell? I told you to stay away from her, he yelled, and I told you to stay away from him. sorry. I'm trying to find the part where Drew gets to have a say in the romantic relationship with Nathan and Delilah, because from where I'm sitting, the guy is just a jealous ex-boyfriend who is looking to stir up unnecessary drama. I know that neither Delilah nor Nathan are exactly winners in any aspect, but nobody deserves to be stalked and harassed by somebody who refuses to accept that an ex-girlfriend is not his property. As you might expect, Nathan breaks away from Delilah to go start to physically confront Drew about his. Delilah only just wants them to take it into her unit before the neighbor comes out. Drew gets even angrier when he realizes Nathan has a key to Delilah's apartment. Inside, Drew starts in about how Nathan likes to sleep around. He asks her in a really condescending tone if Nathan tried certain lines on her. He asks if he's the one who covered her in baby batter at the bar. If he's the one she said understood her. Nathan then gets up into Drew's face and reminds the other man that he's the one spending the night in Delilah's bed, not Drew. Finally, after a couple of minutes of male posturing, Delilah tells Andrew to get out. He actually has the audacity to bring up the not fraternization clause in their contracts, but Delilah expertly plays Drew's emotions for her like a fiddle and asks him if he would make her unhappy by exposing them at work. Drew then says that he doesn't like Nathan and thinks that he's going to hurt Delilah. And I get it. His concern seems to come from a place of genuine concern over her well-being, but at the same time, this is a good example of how not to confront somebody over them being in a toxic relationship. Seeming to stalk them, showing up unannounced, spreading untrue rumors, verbally accosting the other person, refusing to leave her personal residence when asked. Wow, Drew, are you in middle school or something? This kind of behavior is really immature. Delilah tells Drew a second time that he has to leave, and goes on to say that he shouldn't come back until she's ready to get to know who Nathan actually is, rather than the rumors that are spread about him. However, rather than actually leave, Drew just praises Delilah and calls her a good girl. There is not enough ick in the entire universe for me to properly express how this makes me feel. Why does Drew's relationship with Delilah seem like he'd been grooming her and then she somehow managed to get away? Before Drew leaves, Nathan tells him to Google him, that it would change Drew's opinion about Nathan. The second Drew is out the door, Nathan pounces on Delilah. Chapter 23. So you know how Drew caught Delilah and Nathan red-handed and was about to get arrested for assaulting Nathan in Delilah's apartment hallway? Yeah, about that. The next morning, I was shocked into silence when Andrew walked straight up to Nathan in the parking lot and hugged him. Nathan hugged him back, and they exchanged what I could only describe as some secret man look. No fists, no angry words, but an understanding and friendship budded in front of my eyes as Andrew vowed to stay silent about us. Over the next few days, it became lunch buddies, Andrew splitting between the two of us. Barely an inconvenience. Even Delilah is confused by this and calls Nathan out about the entire thing. He says that he knew exactly what Drew is going to find on Google, despite Nathan knowing that most of it is misinformed garbage. However, this only just upsets Delilah that she doesn't know anything about what happened, but now Caroline and Drew know, which part of me gets it, because when you're in a relationship with somebody, the last thing you should do is Google them, but if it's really bothering her that much, she should just Google it. But Nathan tells her that he's struggling to figure out how to tell her what exactly happened, and I get that it's likely a heavy conversation and he doesn't know where to begin, but at the same time, come on man, enough stalling, just rip that band-aid off. The book then finally remembers to get around to that pesky plot about the anti-fraternization clause, and also the random background characters of Sadie and Will. The narration had hinted that it was rumors, but now it's getting out that it's not just rumors. Jack tells everybody that since Sadie quit, Will was going to be able to stay on at the company, which is whatever. I legit don't care about these characters. I don't think that they've had a single ounce of page time whatsoever. But Andrew tells Delilah that the latest rumor about them is that Will and Sadie are going to get married, and Sadie is going to be a stay-at-home mom. This leads Delilah to the question if she would ever have something like that, but then the narration has to hammer in a heavy-handed reminder that the emotional abuse Delilah suffered, and she thinks that literally nobody would ever want her. Despite the narration literally never allowing Delilah to have thoughts like this, not once. Sure, she made depressing jokes, but we are inside of Delilah's head. She joked about it, but never really said to herself that she was worthless. And let me tell you that there's a huge difference between a joke and actually thinking that you're nothing. However, after the Will-Sadie incident, Nathan begins to emotionally pull away from her. Physically, he's there the same as usual, but Delilah can sense that he's putting up walls to keep her away. Delilah finds out that it's going to be his birthday, but his reaction towards this is exceptionally negative. His birthday passed. I couldn't even wish him a happy birthday. All I was able to give him was my body, letting him take anything he wanted that night. Considering that they bang literally every single night, how is that different than any other day? 2 days after that, Nathan leaves work early. Delilah goes to his apartment to find him twirling a wedding band between his fingers, and she thinks that whatever happened, it must involve a dead wife. He tells her that she shouldn't have come, despite not actually telling her this until she showed up, that he could hurt her, which is still so funny considering all of the holes he's punched into the world. Girl knows that you're psychotic and violent, and she still chose to say, how is this going to be any different? He then says the smartest thing that anybody has said in this entire book, that the relationship is messed up and that she shouldn't be around him anymore. Naturally, Delilah argues with him about this. She thinks that what she has with Nathan is actually love, and she's actually willing to fight for somebody whom I'm not sure was ever actually all that emotionally invested in their relationship to begin with. However, this quickly turns into Nathan pushing her away because he can't lose her in the same way he lost his family. But because Delilah is just that emotionally starved for any sort of physical contact, she begs for Nathan to use her body in order to ease his grief. That sounds healthy. I thought that she was in therapy, but I doubt it if she's seriously still acting like this. They bang, but it's way rougher than anything that they'd done before. As Nathan finishes, he pulls away from her, and Delilah can see something in his eyes that's become broken to the point where he's almost a different person. He pulls away from her, but she foolishly calls him to return to her. However, when he does, he's brutal and causes Delilah to cry and regret her actions. What happens next is something that not even the narration can put into a pretty romantic spin on, which is how you know that it's bad when even this dumpster fire of a novel acknowledges that what happened is f***ed up. My muscles went lax, and I gave into the sensations, unfolded myself so his needs could be sated and the nightmare could end. The narration never calls this rape, but that's literally what's happening here. Delilah isn't enjoying it and actually goes so far as to wish that the entire thing was over. She had encouraged Nathan to use her body. She even asked Nathan to come back to the bed until he himself was finished. But take a look at that passage again and tell me that it was wanted. She literally used the word nightmare. Nathan finishes and leaves, and Delilah passes out. When she wakes up, even after everything that just happened, she's somehow surprised that he's not there. Instead, she finds a note saying that this isn't working out, and he wants to act like nothing ever happened. Delilah is understandably devastated by this, like she somehow hadn't seen it coming from a mile away. I wasn't strong enough to fix him, strong enough to heal him, strong enough for myself, or strong enough to hold us together. I really hope that I don't have to explain to people why this is just the absolute peak of toxic. You shouldn't ever want to look at somebody and tell yourself that your love should be strong enough to overcome all and any emotional problems without actually working on your emotional problems. And I said even in this chapter that it felt like Nathan wasn't putting nearly a fraction of his emotional energy into this relationship, but Delilah was putting in 110%. You can't have that kind of uneven give and take in a relationship where one side is just taking and taking and the other is just giving and giving. Eventually, one side is going to snap. And look, it happened. Right from the get-go, I knew that Nathan was going to be this emotionally unavailable jerkwad. And I was right. Do you want to know what I was also right about? That Delilah was getting way too emotionally attached, and the only outcome was going to be Nathan breaking her heart. Thanks for listening to my book, Snark, on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to support me. The first is watching this video as well as all of my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book, Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main snarks, and you can find even more snark on my Patreon, you can access it for $1 a month. Plus, you also get early access to my main Tumblr snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $3 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well. $3 for every 5,000 words. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and now 2 full-length novels. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys.